Hey everybody, this is Cole and Jamie Boling with the Boling Group at Keller Williams One Legacy Partners in Topeka, Kansas. And we are a husband-wife team. Today we are coming to you to talk to you a little bit about our contract in the Topeka MLS market. We are known as the Sunflower Association of Realtors, and we together cover a large area of the Northeast Kansas corridor. So what we're doing in this video is we're talking about page 1 and part of page 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of walk through it and help you understand how we fill out a fully executed contract in our office, and to make sure that all of the details are covered for all of our buyers, that they know that we're taking care of everything for them. So we're just going to start right at the top. Very simple. We have the contract date. Now, for a contract to be actually fully executed, you need to know 5 things. We have to know what the date of the preparation for the contract is. We have to know who the buyer is and who the seller is. We also have to know what they're going to purchase the property for, when they're going to close. If we have those 5 things, we typically can get a deal done. However, that doesn't really cover the details. And this is what we do. This is what we do really well. We are very detail oriented. And as we're going to show you here, no matter if you use us, which we really hope you do, this will make sure that you're making sure that your agent is covering all of your bases as well. So basically, this is what it says. We have a contract preparation date, followed by the seller's full name and their marital status. We have to know the marital status because of titling. We have to make sure that as a buyer buying a property, the title work that is going to be transferred to you can never come back to bite you. What that means is if we find out later that somebody is married or wasn't married, they may still have ownership in that property if they're not fully signed off on that deed as it's transferred to you. Now, we have title policies and insurance policies and things that do protect you, but this is one way to make sure that the title company can and will search all the parties involved. Same thing with the buyer's name. We need to know what the marital status is there so that we can determine what the actual deed is. In this case, in the state of Kansas, we do have marital status as husband and wife turned into what we call joint tenancy with right of survivorship, which means that if one spouse or the other was to pass away unexpectedly, then the other spouse gets full ownership 100%. You have equal 100% ownership of that property. Together, you guys do not, the other party never has to go to court. There's no probate. There's nothing like that. So automatically, we determine that, yes, that is happening. It's a very rare occasion that a buyer does not select this if they are married. Moving on. For good and valuable consideration, the buyer and the seller agree to the following. We always determine the county. We have to put on there what county that you are purchasing the property in. In our typical case, it's Shawnee County. We have Jackson County. We have Osage. We have Lyons. We have Jefferson. We have a lot of surrounding counties, Muncie, so forth. So because we are involved in all of those communities, we do write which county this property is in, which also helps with title. Then we go to what we call the legal description. The current legal description, as it will appear on the deed, is what we have determined is the legal property, right? So a legal description will say a lot. Typically, it will tell you where the property is located, where in the corridors of the sections of the areas, including sometimes the property address. But a property address is not technically what the description of the property is. It is based on the land and then the modifications that came later. So we always put the property description.
It includes the lot, your block number, your lot number. It would tell you exactly where you would be located on a map. So
yes, absolutely. And that is why we do put that prior in before a property address, because a property address is typically going to give you those location to get there. It doesn't necessarily tell, just because that house has 123 Main Street on it, that doesn't tell you that 123 Main Street goes all the way over to that neighbor's property and that neighbor's property and that fence line in the back. That's where the legal description comes in and protects you. Now, looking at the next big long paragraph, let me just sum this one up for you. The real estate together with attached improvements shall include, and it basically says this: anything that is nailed, glued, bolted, screwed, glued, or buried in this property should stay. We have the opportunity at the bottom to write any exceptions. If things like TV mounts, a TV mount or a curtain rod or blinds, things like that, if they're attached to the property, they're supposed to stay. Security systems, those things. If we go, I really want that TV mount gone, then we would write the exception here is seller to remove TV mount. That is the exception, right? So in here, anything that would be nailed, glued, bolted, screwed, buried on the premises that we want gone, that's where we would fill this box below. If we do not, all of those things would stay with the property. Next, we have the purchase price and financing. We always need to know, based on any contract, how much you're going to pay for a property. What is your offer price? Well, based on this, we always determine what the offer price is first, then we go into what we call earnest money. So earnest money is not required in the state of Kansas, but what is usually a good faith is about 1% of a purchase price, if not more, when putting it down. That shows that you are a serious buyer and you really do have intention of closing on this property. So we do ask our buyers to put down typically 1% of a purchase price. So if you're going to buy a $300,000 home, it's typically going to be at bare minimum $3,000. This is always negotiable. Some sellers want $10,000, some sellers want $20,000, depending upon the property. Some are okay with $500. It is all negotiable. We always try to start at 1%. It shows a good faith. Typically, we can get that amount.
And that goes towards your final amount, towards your closing cost for your down payment as well. So to go towards that amount.
Yes. So every loan program typically has some kind of down payment, 3%, 5%, 10%, 20%. It would be that percent minus whatever you've already put into an escrow account. And that is typically held by a third-party company, which has an account. It's called an escrow account, and it's monitored by the state of Kansas, and they make sure that all money is accounted for. We typically do like to send it directly to a title company. The title company is who's going to handle all the numbers and making sure that you do get to closing. So going into section B, how are you going to actually pay for this property? Let's say you're going to offer $100,000 for a property. How are you going to pay for it? Well, this is how we determine it. There are 4 different types of purchasing options. Whatever that type is, we're going to check it. So we're going to select one of them. Let's start with cash. Very simple. How much are you going to pay for the property? How much of it you're going to pay cash? Great. We're going to put the purchase price there following how the funds will be paid. So we're going to bring a certified check at closing or wire funds at closing. We're going to write that right there. And everything from this point on this page is not part of the deal. Let's say we go to the assumption of an existing mortgage. We see assumptions of existing mortgages very rarely, but they do happen. 2 times that I've seen it happen and I know of is somebody was losing the house and their loan was assumable, and an investor was able to go to that bank, and that bank was able to just literally shift everything to this new person. So the interest rate was the same, the numbers were the same, everything was the same. They just did a simple quick claim deed, some recording fees, and that's done. Another time is like a VA loan. VA loans are assumable. Let's say interest rates spike into a 5% and somebody has a 3% VA loan. The VA member can assume a former VA loan at the lower rate. If that is the case, we're going to check this box. We're going to then also fill out any attached documents or amendments that we need. Okay. Now let's talk about installment sales. So installment sales is typically seller financing. So this is when a seller is going to act as the bank and allow you to purchase their property for a certain period of time. We have another form that we would bring in and fill out at this time, but this is another way to finance properties, is a seller finance property. However, the biggest part is typically a new mortgage. A new mortgage is any time you go to a bank and get a loan. In the home world, we call that a mortgage. A mortgage is defined as a bank giving you money to buy a property. Okay. So in that case, what we're going to do is we're going to determine who that company is, who is that lender. That lender would be the banker, and who that is and how much they're going to do. Like, what is the amount of the loan? We're also going to determine what an interest rate is. We're going to write on here an interest rate, and it's either going to be that or lower. So our goal is to get you at least a certain price. That's our negotiated price, and that's typically what we're going to find. Then we're going to follow by the term length. How long is this loan going to be? We do typically see a 30-year loan. So we would write there for 30 years. Then we go down to the bottom. One of the last sections on this page does talk about in the event of a compliance inspection. So compliance inspections come in the form of appraisals only. So appraisal compliance inspection, that means the real estate appraiser who works for the bank and the buyer goes out to the property to determine its value. Upon it going to the property, they also do what's called a visual inspection based on certain criteria of the loan program. So if it's a conventional loan, a VA loan, an FHA loan, a construction loan, something like that, they're going to determine what the loan requirement is. Let's say an appraiser goes out and finds that the foundation looks a little bit off. They're going to recommend that you go and get an additional inspection. Well, we actually determine up front who's going to pay for that and how much. So let's say we put on here that the seller will pay for any additional inspections that are required through compliance in the amount of, let's say, $100. Well, if that inspection comes back to be $500, we do have to go back to the negotiating table. We do put a certain amount of money there first so that we can make sure that at any time, if that dollar amount is met or below, we don't have to negotiate anymore. Okay, so we do determine those up front. Now, on to the next page.
And we also have to make sure that the buyer and the seller initial both. If
Oh,
there's two buyers or sellers, they initial at the bottom of that page.
Yes, so every page on our contract does have a seller initial and a buyer initial box.
Yep.
Where's that? Oh, I guess I'm popped up. We're getting there. Just one second. There it is. There it is. Okay, page 2. We have the loan types. So number 1, loan type, conventional loan. This is your average, everyday private entity bank giving you a mortgage to buy the home. So this would be a local bank, a national bank, anybody giving you a loan from their funds backed by another lender, maybe a Fannie Mae or even sometimes a Chase Bank.
And you would only make one selection if you're getting a mortgage. So if you're paying cash, you don't have to worry about this section. So this is only if you're getting a new mortgage.
Yes. So this is only if you check the new mortgage box, none of the other ones. There's only 4 typical types of loans that we do in a real estate purchase, right? So and that's what we're going to go through. So the first is either a fixed or an adjustable. So a fixed or adjustable conventional loan means just 2 things. Fixed, the rate is the same for 30 years.
However long your term is for.
Exactly. If it's 15, 10, 5, 40, whatever is out there, it's fixed. Doesn't change no matter what the economy is doing. Now, an adjustable rate is when it will fluctuate based on the market. So let's say today the rate is kind of high, right? Let's say it's 4% or 5%. And we know that the economy does not look good. And it's probably more than likely we're going to see interest rates going, or let's say the economy is really good. And we know the interest rates typically when economy is really good do come down, right? So it's kind of backwards, right? Economy is really good, the interest rates go down. When the economy is really bad, interest rates go up. So let's say we know that things are booming and we know in 6 months or 12 months that this rate's probably going to be better than it is right now. We can do a 3-year adjustable, 5-year adjustable, 7-year. They call them an ARM. Typically investors do this where they'll buy a property on a 7-year ARM. And that means the rate is fixed at that rate until that adjustable. But whatever your term is, if you don't refinance at the end of that, it automatically becomes that new rate. So they can be tricky. You have to be very careful with that. We do just ask people to do fixed loans because then you don't have to get into too many other things. But if you know you're only going to be at a property for a short amount of time, adjustable is not a bad thing either. So something to consider. Okay. Now, next we have a VA loan only for veterans. Pretty simple. If you're a veteran, this paragraph, we're going to fill out a couple things. One, who's going to pay the discount points necessary to secure the VA loan? Typically the buyer, right? So the buyer is going to pay a certain percentage of that loan. Right now, I don't think there's any discount points that you have to pay to get that. So typically that's going to be a 0 on that percentage. Then we roll into the funding fee. If you're a first-time user of your entitlement to the VA loan, you have a 2.45, I believe that's what it is, rate that is amortized into the loan. So this shall be paid by the buyer as follows, and we always put amortized into the loan. If it's your second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, however many times you've used your VA loan, the second time on is 3.65. So,
and I'm sorry to jump in. I would recommend going and watching our video that we've posted with our VA loans with Nathan Coker at Smart Home Lending. He goes into this into a little bit more detail. And this is the section where we work hand in hand with your lender, or the buyer's agent does, and we make sure that we have those numbers for that section entered into this contract correctly.
Yes. So we always double check everything, cross our T's, dot our I's, and in these boxes, it's super critical. So yes, at the end of this video, there will be a link, and there'll be one of the videos is going to be the VA video so that you can watch the video that talks about VA loans, and we should have a conventional loan video on there as well.
Yep.
FHA loan. Now this is pretty much your government-backed loan. There's not much more to say about it. Some people believe that this is a first-time home buyer loan. It's not.
I think it's because the FHA, people think it stands for first-time home.
I think so, because I think you thought that too at one point. I don't know.
I think so when I first got into it. So yeah, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer to get an FHA type loan.
Yeah. What the FHA loan is really good for is the lending requirements on it are not as stringent as they are on a conventional loan.
Your down payment is
your down payment's
lower.
Typically less. Your credit score doesn't have to be as good as a conventional, where conventional right now is around the 660, give or take a little bit, where this can go down low as sometimes 580 to 600. I've seen it. Depending upon your debt to income ratio. We don't get into it too much. We typically let the banker tell us, the lender tell us what you're doing. We just fill it out. And this is where we get into different percentages, and it does vary and fluctuate based on the loan. So we're not going to go into detail on that because your loan may be different based on percentages, points, different insuring fees. But just know the FHA loan is a federal loan that is backed by the government. So think about it like this. 80% of your loan on FHA may be bought by Fannie Mae. It may be bought by Chase Bank. Who knows? But the last 20% of your loan, or the last, because you have to put 3.5% down on FHA, the last, 16.5%, I can't do my math today, is backed by the government. So where typically you would have a conventional loan up to 95%, because it's a 5% down if you're not a first-time home buyer, that 95% is backed by the entire lender. So in an FHA, they only cover the first 80, and a conventional, they cover the 95. That's why you have private mortgage insurance on both fronts. That the final 20% basically after the 80 has to be covered through a private mortgage company in case of default. Mm-hmm. A lot of people never knew that. And that's just kind of why I wanted to share that. So for this video, that's where we're going to end today. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for our next video, which we're going to continue on with the contract. See ya.
Bye.